Everyone says triathlon is expensive. But how expensive is it really? When I signed up for my first Ironman 70.3 Mossel Bay, there was one thing everyone kept telling me. You are going to spend a fortune. Today, I'll show you all the equipment and gear that I bought for the Ironman 70.3 Mossel Bay. I'll mention the cost of each item, the purpose of the item, why I bought the item, will I buy it again, and I'll give it a rating out of 5. Let's dive into swimming.
Just a quick one before we start. My rating system isn't a rating of each item. It's a rating on how necessary it is to have each item for triathlon. First item is the swim buoy. I paid 600 Rand for it. It makes you visible in open water and it's a safety precaution as well. You need it if you swim alone. I'd definitely buy it again and I'll give this a solid 5 out of 5. Swim trunks. Paid 400 Rand for it. I use it for every swim session, even in my wetsuit if I don't swim with a tri suit. I'd definitely buy it again. I'll give this a solid 5 out of 5. Swimming caps. Paid 250 Rand for both. Always make sure you have 2 with you because they rip very easily. Purpose of these are to keep the hair out of your face. You definitely need one. Most races require you to have one as well. I'll always buy more of them. I'll give this a solid 5 out of 5. When you look at earplugs, they stop water from getting into your ear. You don't need them if you don't struggle with water in your ear. I definitely need them. So for me personally, this is a 5 out of 5. Swim goggles. The thing I wish I spent more money on. Good goggles make you see clearly, not mine. I paid 300 Rand for mine. You absolutely need them, you can't swim without them. I'll definitely buy them again, but I'll definitely invest in a much better pair that doesn't fog up as much as mine. Orca wetsuit, the thing I regret the least. I'm happy spending 7,000 Rand on the wetsuit, even though it was the cheapest one in store. The purpose of mine is to add buoyancy, to make you float, because apparently I can't float. You don't necessarily need it. Some races will require you to wear one if the water is too cold. I'll definitely buy one again. 5 out of 5 for me. So the swimming total came to 8,670 Rand, which looks like a lot, but if you take out the wetsuit, you're only left with 1,670, which is much better. So if you've got a swimming background or you're a strong swimmer in general and you don't need a wetsuit, given it's not too cold, that's quite a cheap entry into triathlon if you look at swimming gear. That's it for swimming. Let's roll into cycling. Cycling glasses, even where cheap pairs makes a difference. I paid 300 Rand for both pairs. It protects your eyes from wind and sun. I do recommend it. Solid 3.5. Cycling helmet, paid 500 for mine. Purpose is to protect your head in a crash. You absolutely need it. You can't ride without one, and every race requires it. I'd buy one without a doubt, but this time I'll buy a much more expensive one. 5 out of 5. Into cycling shoes. I paid 4,400 for mine with their insoles. Purpose of my shoes are to clip into my pedals, making it more efficient and giving you better power transfer. If you don't need them, you can ride with flat pedals, but it is recommended if you take it serious. Would 100% buy mine again. 4.5 out of 5. Miscellaneous cycling gear makes training safer, helps with mechanical problems. I paid 800 for all of my stuff. You need some items like lights and stuff. I do recommend buying it. I'll give this a 4 out of 5. And then the indoor trainer. I paid 10,000 Rand for mine on special. Indoor trainer makes it possible to train inside regardless of the weather. You definitely don't need it, but in the area I stay in, it's recommended. I would buy mine again, but it would differ from person to person. I'll give this a 3 out of 5. I own a Specialized Tarmac SL6 Sport 2022 model. paid 24,000 for it. The bike is something you use for all your training and racing. You definitely need a bike. You can't complete the Ironman without it. You don't need this bike though. You can take a cheaper bike. Would I buy it again? Absolutely. 5 out of 5. So in total, I spent 41,000 on my cycling setup. Cycling is by far the most expensive part of triathlon, but it's also where you can save the most money. You don't need an indoor trainer, expensive cycling shoes, or even a carbon road bike to complete an Ironman. All you need is a safe, reliable bike and a helmet to get you to the finish line. So that's the expensive part done. Let's race into running. First up, we've got the race belt. It's a small purchase, but it makes your race day much easier. The race belt holds your race number during the run and bike. You don't necessarily need it. You can pin it to your shirt, but it makes life much easier. If I had the option, I'd buy it again. I would probably look at a cheaper one. I'll give this a 3.5 to 4 out of 5. Next up is the Asics Nimbus 26. They were my first training pair. They're very comfortable, but they're too soft for my feet. Do you need them? Not necessarily Asics, but you do need a good pair of running shoes. I wouldn't buy them again. They were too soft for me, but shoes in general, 5 out of 5. Now onto my new shoes. The Saucony Speed 5s. I paid 3,300 for them. They are my faster running shoe, so I do cycle between the two shoes. You don't need them. You don't need an expensive shoe to train like this one. I'd buy them again. For me, it's an easy 5 out of 5. Then onto the White Elephant, the treadmill. I paid 7,000 for it. What it does, it lets you train indoors if the weather is bad. Do you need it? Absolutely not. Would I buy it again? Absolutely not. I'll give this a solid 1.5 out of 5. So in total, I spent 13,450 on my running setup. Most of that came from the treadmill, which looking back, I probably didn't need. So if you own a decent pair of running shoes, you can start training for a fraction of the cost. Next up is my Miscellaneous Gear. All the items I've listed here doesn't fit into one specific category, like swimming, running, or cycling. It fits into more than one. That's why I've created a whole new category just for these items. These items make training and racing more convenient, but most of them aren't absolutely essential. First up is the transition bag. It keeps everything organized on race day, and it makes transition a lot less stressful. I paid 1,250 for this. I'd definitely buy it again, but without a doubt, it's not an essential item. So I'll give this a 3 out of 5. Next is all my stretching and recovery equipment. I paid 1,000 Rand for everything you're seeing in the top video. It helped me stay on top of recovery throughout training. I'd definitely buy it again, but it's not essential. I'll give this a 3.5 out of 5. And then the tri-suit. I paid 2,150 for mine. The tri-suit is the do-it-all. You swim, bike and run in it without changing clothes. I'll definitely buy it again. I'll give this a 5 out of 5. And then onto the more techie side. The Forerunner 165. I paid 3,500 for my watch on a big special on FNB. The watch I use to track every workout, monitor my pace, heart rate, recovery, HRV status, sleep score, you name it. It's one of my most used pieces of gear. I'd give this a 5 out of 5. My miscellaneous gear came down to 7,900 Rand. Fortunately, in my opinion, the only thing that's like a dead essential there is a running watch. You don't need a tri-suit, you don't need a transition bag, you don't need any special stretching or recovering gear. It certainly does help, and it makes race day much more enjoyable. But if you have a watch that can measure your pace and your distance, you are well away. And now onto fuel, the thing that makes you going. Just a disclaimer when it comes to fuel, supplements, anything like that. This is what I am using. This does not mean it'll work for you, work with your gut. This is unfortunately trial and error, but this is what I'm using, and for me it works really well. So if you want to, please be free to give it a shot. Then supplements. The purpose of supplements is to give you the nutrients, electrolytes, protein, anything you need. So these are all the essential ones I use for my daily use. I would buy them again, and nutrition 5 out of 5. Altogether, I've spent $1,785 on nutrition. I'd say this would keep me fueled for roughly 1.5 to 2 months. Most of these are consumables, so unlike the rest of the gear, you actually need to replace these over time. The good news is you don't need everything I've shown here. Find a nutrition strategy that works for you and just stick with that. The final category isn't gear at all. It's the race entries. Without signing up for a race, all of this equipment doesn't really have a purpose. The biggest cost here is the Ironman 70.3 Mossel Bay race entry itself. It's definitely not cheap, but without entering the race, none of this journey would have started. I paid $4,644.35 for my entry, and I was one of the first people who entered, so I paid before all the price increases. And then my only other cost in this category is my TSA annual license. TSA stands for Triathlon South Africa. It is required if you want to compete in any sanctioned triathlon events throughout the year. So this is a must-have, 5 out of 5. And then in total, I've spent R5,025.85 on race entries. That's before accommodation, travel, and everything else that comes with race weekend. And then the big question. How much did all of this actually cost? After adding everything together, from swimming, cycling, running gear, to miscellaneous equipment, nutrition and race entries, I've spent a total of R77,829.85, or roughly $4,751.80, getting ready for my first Ironman 70.3 Mossel Bay. Now, before anyone says that's what you need to spend, it really isn't. You can absolutely complete an Ironman on a much smaller budget. A reliable road bike, a helmet, comfortable pair of running shoes, some basic swim gear, and your race entry are more than enough to get you to the finish line. This is simply what I decided to invest in. Looking back, there are definitely a few things I probably didn't need, but there are also purchases I'll make again without hesitation. And at the end of the day, the gear is only a small part of the journey. The real goal is getting to the start line healthy and making it to the finish line.
Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing if you want to follow the rest of my Ironman 70.3 journey. I'll catch you in the next one.